Welcome to Frequency Matters, the RF and microwave industry update video series. I'm Kristen Anderson, and I'm here with my co-host, Gary LaRue. Pat Hindle is actually back by now from his Mobile World Congress visit in Barcelona, where he was covering the test and measurement companies, some of the semiconductor companies that were exhibiting there. And on the theme of test and measurement, that is the theme of our March issue, which is out now, on test and measurement. Can you tell us about some of the articles we're covering in March?
Sure, we have several interesting articles, as you would expect. Our cover feature is written by Dr. James Truchard, who's the founder of and also CEO of National Instruments. And his article relays the use of a platform approach for test and measurement. And if you think about the iOS or the Android operating systems, you have a common platform that spawned hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of applications that people use every day. If you consider that same approach in test and measurement, if you leverage from commercial developments in FPGAs and analog to digital converters, and then put a software system design platform on top of that, you really have a lot of power. And not only can that be applied to test and measurement itself, but it's also now being used in actual system development. Dr. Truchard cites a couple of examples in communication systems and radar systems, and it shows it's a very powerful concept. Wow. On the same theme, we have an article from Radix Technologies on software-defined synthetic instruments. And again, it's a similar concept of a common hardware platform with custom software for different test and measurement functions. So it could be a spectrum analyzer, it could be an oscilloscope. And the importance of this is in many programs, these programs may last a decade or more, and you can have test equipment that goes obsolete or end of life. And then if you have to totally redesign the test system, it's a major cost and a problem. So their approach is this, again, platform allows you to just maybe change a few drivers and software if you have to put in a new piece of test equipment.
Very nice.
So that's interesting. Then we also have from Keysight Technologies, Mario Narducci is writing an article on their modular approach to test equipment and how it can improve time to first measurement while ensuring the confidence in the measurement.
Wow.
And certainly my experience career-wise is in the development of a new system.
Yeah.
Oftentimes the test equipment is sort of an afterthought, the test system, and it tends to pace the program. So with the modular approach, you can get to that first measurement much more quickly. And then our other test and measurement article, a little bit different, this one written by Tektronix and a company called Octoscope. They're discussing how do you test a Wi-Fi system in the presence of Wi-Fi signals. I would guess that most of our viewers are in offices where there's a Wi-Fi network. And if you're trying to test a Wi-Fi system and debug it in the presence of all these other signals, how do you do that? Traditionally, you'd have a screen room, but if you don't have a screen room, that's expensive and difficult to implement. Well, using this approach in this article with some small anechoic chambers, you can do those kind of measurements and have a pristine test environment that you can really tell what's going on in the system.
And that's Octoscope?
Octoscope, yes.
Octoscope, okay.
So those are our technical articles, our technical features. How about the products and the tech briefs?
The products, yes. Okay, so we've got one product feature this month, and that's a VNA by Anritsu that addresses the embedding, de-embedding challenges of high-frequency component designs. And then we do have 5 tech briefs this month, starting with RF MEMS by Cavendish Kinetics that fine-tune Nubia's LTE smartphones. This enables the Z7 antenna to provide peak efficiency across all of China's LTE spectrum bands. Then we cover Microsemi's ultra miniature, I'm going to say it, ovenized crystal oscillator that provides a high stability VHF sine wave output. Then we have OML's low power series for VNA frequency extension modules, and then 2.45 gigahertz ISM band solid state high power replacements for magnetrons by California Eastern Labs. And finally, Signal Hound's software called Spike, which integrates all of their SA series spectrum analyzers and all of their TG series tracking generator modules under the same open source graphical user interface platform as their Signal Hound BB60C spectrum analyzer. So those are the 5 tech briefs that we're covering in this month's issue.
And we probably should mention that our most valuable product this month is the microwave vector signal generator made by Rode and Schwartz, and it covers up to 40 gigahertz. So we feature that as our MVP.
Yep. So chock full of good tested measurement information should be landing in our offices next week. So on to the news. There's some new exciting things taking place again with mergers and acquisitions this week. It's not ending. NXP and Freescale are continuing this trend with their recent $40 billion merger. Now, this new merged entity will become the market leader in automotive semiconductor solutions and general purpose microcontroller products. And the combined company will capitalize on the growing demand for security, connectivity, and processing.
You know, it's interesting. This is one of those acquisitions that in hindsight looks like it you could have predicted it, but it did still come as a bit of a surprise. Yeah. I think for the RF and microwave industry, the most interesting part of this is Freescale is the number one in the market for LDMOS RF power transistors, and NXP is number two. So combining them, you clearly have a strong number one compared to a far distant number three, Infineon. Wow. So recognizing that they probably would have regulatory issues getting the deal approved, they announced as part of the deal that they're actually going to spin off or sell NXP's high-performance RF business. So there won't be a competitive, monopolistic kind of issue. So the mergers and acquisitions are not over. Certainly within the next few months before the deal closes, we're going to see somebody buying that NXP business, the RF business, and so we'll see where that ends up. Should be pretty interesting.
Always is very interesting. There's a lot of implications, a lot of consequences to the mergers and acquisitions in our industries. Trade shows coming up. Each company has a booth. Each company has a marketing plan. They got to bring it all together.
That's right.
Time for trade shows. All right, well, I'd like to move on and tell you what you know a lot about already is Ken Conklin's latest blog on our website, which was a pretty interesting read for me, where he goes into the inevitable cons of our remote-enabled society, but the obvious pros of working from home.
Right.
So I'm sure many of us are remember the days before Skype and GoToMeeting, maybe even the days before email and instant messaging. Do we miss those days? You know, was it a slower pace and yet you had a firm handshake in the end in your face-to-face meetings? Interestingly, the blog is called Anyone Looking for a Program Manager or something?
Right.
And I think he really is looking for a program manager.
Yeah, he is looking for a program manager. When he wrote about that, I thought he may have been talking about me because I was slow to respond to him. But
funny.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's an interesting, I can remember the first time I ever sent a fax.
Yeah.
It took 6 minutes for one page.
Wow. I think he also refers in that article to a TX machine. Now, I do remember a telex.
Twix, yeah.
We called it telex. Is it the same thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that came in like a 2-part form. You had to distribute, or maybe 3-part form. It was typed.
Right. So another thing to mention, last week was Engineers Week, which occurs every year, and I posted on our RF and microwave community on LinkedIn the question, what are you doing in your company to encourage young people to go into the engineering profession? Didn't get a lot of response, although retired RF microwave engineer John Mruz, M-R-U-Z, responded with a kind of a provocative response in the sense of, from his career observations, questioning whether we should be encouraging people to go into engineering.
Oh, really?
So we've invited him to actually publish those thoughts in a future issue, which we'll do. Yeah. But in the meantime, if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to go on LinkedIn and add your points, join in the conversation and share your perspective on that.
So is that in the RF and microwave community?
Yes, on LinkedIn.
If you're not aware of that, you can link to it through probably your page or Pat Handle's page.
If you search on groups, you can find it.
Excellent. Well, that pretty much probably wraps
it up.
This episode of Frequency Matters. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Mini Circuits, online at minicircuits.com. We'd also like to thank you for watching, and we hope you'll join us again for the next episode of Frequency Matters.